the Philadelphia Phillies making some news today. They bolster their starting rotation. They get the veteran right-hander Clay Buchholtz in a trade with Boston for minor league infielder Josh Tobias. And for the second time in less than a week, I get to go to our 97.3 Phillies Insider, Philadelphia, Frank Klose. Frank, how are you, sir?
Hey, Pete, how's it going?
Good, thank you. It's funny how we say, hey, we should probably catch up, and then, bang, things start happening. Now, Mike Gill and I had Scott Profrock on. Gee, why did he tell us they were working on a trade and we could have known to be ready?
Well, I will say Scott Profrock did give you some heads up, in terms of them looking at a bat still who could play some outfield and some first base. So he did give you that. So we'll just have to wait and see who that is.
Got to learn to read between the tea leaves is what you're telling me. So, Frank Klose.
Clay a better hitter than I thought he was?
Tell me where he fits into this rotation then.
They'll make room for him. I think this is a situation where they see an opportunity to acquire somebody that they can cash out for much greater than they acquired him for come July. So I think, and this is a situation where you have Aaron Nola. He's got some injury worries. They were looking to limit innings for players like Velasquez last year. So I think they're not so worried about where he fits. I think that'll work itself out. But I think they see themselves getting somebody who can be traded for better value later. And really, when you look at what they gave up for him, Tobias, I did see him play in Williamsport in 2015. He had a nice season with Lakewood before he got moved up to Clearwater. Didn't tear the cover off the ball totally, but it looks like a really nice little hitter and second baseman and somebody, because of his age, who can kind of move through the system quickly. But he wasn't one of their top 30 prospects even. So it looks like the Phillies basically traded Josh Tobias and a willingness to take all of Clay Buchholtz's $13.5 million salary off of the Red Sox hands in exchange for being able to flip him later. So I think they'll let him pitch, of course, and try to put him into a position where he's going to get the pitch enough that he could show his value. I mean, I think a lot of the rotation next year will be showcasing Jeremy Hellickson and showcasing Clay Buchholtz, while the others, wait in the wings, even if it means that some of these young pitchers are starting in the minors.
Yeah, Frank, from Boston's standpoint, it certainly looks like a complete salary dump. But you mentioned if that's the Phillies' plan, sort of trying to bring him in and then hoping he pitches pretty well and sort of spin him off. You mentioned limited innings. Is that a concern with Buchholz? Because he's only, I think he's averages 140 innings over the past 5 or 6 years. So do you have to be worried about his health if that's your ultimate plan?
Well, if your plan's only to get him to July, I think they do pitch him in regular turn in the rotation. I don't think they're going to worry so much about that. I think they might, in some cases, if he's pitching well after 6, maybe you pull him a little bit just to, before he has a chance to give up any more runs. But other than that, I don't think I think their plan is to just slot him in the rotation, let him pitch every 5 days, and hopefully show that he's got some value for another club that's going to need a veteran starting pitcher.
Flip This House is the show on the real estate. We'll flip this player is what Matt Klentak and the Phillies seem to be doing lately. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank. Boston not having to pay the Buchholz salary, that saves them money because they don't have to pay the luxury tax. And then on the Philly side of things, there's a requirement to spend the minimum amount per the new CBA. So check that box off as well, right?
Yeah, so I think with the Red Sox, they really were up against the luxury tax. When they acquired Chris Sale, they took on a little bit of extra salary. Joel Sherman, did report earlier today that he actually spoke to Red Sox management, and they said they do not plan to reinvest the money they're saving from Buchholz. So I think when you went into the offseason, if you're the Red Sox, you have to take his option just because $13.5 million is not a whole lot of money for a starting pitcher. And then as the offseason played itself out, they needed to unload that money at the same time. So I think the luxury tax is a real consideration, and really the Phillies are in a position where they can just take anybody else's bad money and just use it to their advantage. So if you take on the whole $13.5 million that Buchholz is owed, and come July he's owed 6, let's say he's owed 6, just around the number, Phillies could very easily pay 5 of it and just get better prospects back. And so I would not be shocked if the Phillies did what we saw the Braves do a couple years ago too, where they essentially took the Diamondbacks' top prospect, and they took at the same time the very old and broken down Bronson Arroyo, who never threw a pitch for them, but they assumed his $10 million salary, and they got a prospect in exchange for that. So the Phillies are, the payroll is not low because the Phillies are being cheap. It's just because a lot of their young players haven't made any money yet. So I think they're looking to spend the money, and they're just going to do it in a manner that it benefits them the most down the line, and to take advantage of this great wealth that they essentially have to go spend.
Frank, when you look at the Odubel Herrera extension, you look at this trade, do you get the sense that in the next few weeks we're going to continue to hear some more moves being made by the Phillies?
Well, based on what Scott Profrock said, on your show last week, he talks about having a left-handed bat that could play first base when Tommy Joseph isn't playing, and who could play a corner outfield position. The name that sounds like, if you ask me, is Brandon Moss, who had some time with the Phillies. I think right now you're in a situation where the market for a DH / first baseman / outfielder is kind of saturated at the moment, and somebody like Moss, who's kind of the backup plan, is while Trumbos and Encarnaciones and Jose Bautistas are all kind of sitting out there. I think if the Phillies offered a decent payday to them, they might be able to sneak in and grab someone like Moss now, who would, again, like Buchholz and like Hellickson and like Joaquin Benoit, a lot of these other veteran assets the Phillies are acquiring could be traded down the line. So I would see them try to add somebody like a Brandon Moss. It's easy to say Moss's name because he is a free agent at the moment, but we really don't know who's on other teams' rosters and who they're willing to trade just yet. I mean, I guess they would be privy to that more than I, and I haven't heard anything along those lines. But I think they're going to try to add that one more bat. They really need a left-handed bat, and I think they're going to reach for somebody who could sort of help the lineup function a little bit better in terms of having a lefty between Maikel Franco and Tommy Joseph, and at the same time be a tradable commodity come July.
We're spending some time with Frank Klose. He's our Phillies insider. As the Phillies make a move today and trade for veteran right-hander Clay Buchholtz. And Frank, I'd like to get back into Buchholtz just a little bit for people who may not be familiar with his body of work. What does he do well, and what can he add to this rotation?
Well, he's a two-time All-Star, so he does have a good track record. Now, I think the Phillies are kind of buying low because last season he had a pretty rough first half of the season. He pitched to a 5.91 ERA, but down the stretch he actually pitched pretty well. So I think they're trying to catch him on his rebound. I don't really know if he had any particular mechanical issues he was able to iron out, but he seemed to get it together in the second half of the season. And for Buchholz, he was somebody who was very, very highly thought of with the Red Sox. He got a ring in 2013, of course. So he's got that experience that hopefully he can also at the same time help the young pitchers. And for someone like Buchholz, at 32 years old, he's probably trying to show that he's worth another contract. And so he should be highly motivated this year. And I think that the Phillies are gambling in a very smart way to see if that second half of last year can funnel into a good first half of 2017, and I think in the interim, I think you'll see like Hellickson last year, and probably Hellickson will continue to do. He'll keep the Phillies in games. I've frequently spoken, in the past about how even though you got a lot of young players, you want to try to set the team up so it almost functions like a winning team should. I mean, even if it's not the most ideal situation, but having two veteran starters as opposed to one, really creates a certain level of stability that you don't have if you're running out, four young players, in the rotation all the time, because the players playing behind them, it's almost mental too. They want to know that there's, they're not going to have really long games where they just go from reliever to reliever to reliever. And that's also why they added those couple veteran arms this offseason, is because they really wanted to function like a good team. And all these veterans are only 1-year commitments. So the Howie Kendricks of the world and Pat Neshek, these are guys that hopefully by the time that the year's up, the younger players will have had an opportunity to work with them and at the same time be ready to assume the roles that they are for this year.
And just to expand on your point a little bit, and I hate to throw this guy under the bus, but it's the name that jumps out at me the most when I think about young arms. And who is this guy? The days of a rotation where the guy, who's coming up? Well, it's Severino Gonzalez, is going to be our starter tonight. At least now they have some names that are established guys who are going to be in there, and you know what you get. Here's some interesting Buchholtz numbers for you, Frank, that he was a more competent pitcher away from Fenway Park last year than he was at home in 16 games on the road, a 3.90 ERA with 54 strikeouts, 28 walks in 67 innings. So, yes, the Phillies certainly look like they're taking that chance. Buy low, sell high, and maybe they get the guy that was good away from Fenway Park and would be fine at Citizens Bank Park. Frank Klose with us talking a little Phillies baseball. I guess we'll wrap up with this. Scott did ask you, Scott Grayson, if there were any more moves that you anticipated, but I'll ask you this. How much Phillies merchandise have you bought for your family, and is that all going to be under the tree?
Nothing yet, but I do have a child on the way, so I'm sure there'll be some Phillies baby stuff I'll be buying at some point. But I figure I'll wait and see what happens at Christmas. Indeed,
do you know if you're having a boy or a girl? I mean,
I'm having a little girl.
There you go. There you go. Frank Klose with us. Well, thank you, buddy. Congrats on your impending arrival. We wish the best for that as well. And we appreciate you being on speed dial when Scott Profrock decides to zig when we think he's zagging.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.